The Vallani had never known war. For 10,000 years, they lived in peace on their beautiful world called Lyra. Their cities were made of crystal that sang when the wind blew through them. Their people were gentle and kind. They could speak to each other with their minds, sharing thoughts and feelings like gifts. They had no weapons. They had no soldiers. They had never needed them. But the universe is not a gentle place. The Drekar swarm came without warning. They appeared in the sky like a dark cloud that blocked out the sun. Their ships were not made of metal like normal vessels. They were alive, grown from flesh and bone and hatred. The Drekar themselves were monsters. They stood tall on 6 legs, with claws that could cut through stone, and mouths filled with teeth. They did not come to conquer. They did not come to negotiate. They came to feed. Within hours, the first cities fell. The Vallani ran, but they could not fight. They did not know how. Their elders tried to reach out with their minds, to find some peace with the invaders. The Drekar had no minds that could be touched. They had only hunger. Elder Vessa stood in the last great city, watching the horizon burn. She was old, even by Vallani standards. She had seen her people grow and prosper. Now she watched them die. "We must call for help," she said to the council. Her voice was tired but firm. "The Galactic Accord must hear us." The Galactic Accord was a group of powerful alien species who had formed a council long ago. They made rules for the galaxy. They kept peace between worlds. Surely, they would help. The Vallani sent their message. They broadcasted on every frequency they could find. They begged and pleaded. They sent images of burning cities and dying children. They asked the stars for salvation. The Accord received the message. They called an emergency meeting. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in their great hall to discuss the situation. "The Vallani are under attack," said the speaker, a tall being with silver skin. "The Drekar swarm has entered their system." "A tragedy," said another representative, shaking his head. "But what can we do? The Drekar are dangerous. We cannot risk our own people." "We should send observers," suggested someone else, "to document the situation." "Yes, observers. And diplomats. Perhaps we can negotiate with the swarm." The debate went on for days. They argued about treaties and protocols. They discussed the political implications. They worried about their own safety. They sent kind words and empty promises. They told the Vallani that help would come soon. Soon was not soon enough. But the Vallani's signal did not stop at the Accord's borders. It traveled further, past known space, past the edges of the galactic maps. It reached a small blue planet that orbited a yellow sun. A planet the Accord had labeled as primitive and pre-ascendant. A planet called Earth. Captain Una Park was working late at the United Earth Defense Corps headquarters when the signal came in. She was a woman of 43 years, with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much. She had fought in 3 wars on Earth before humanity had reached the stars. Now she commanded a fleet that protected their corner of space. Her communications officer, a young man named June, called her over to his station. "Captain, you need to hear this." Una listened to the transmission. She heard the fear in the Vallani voices. She saw the footage of monsters tearing through crystal towers. She watched children running from things that wanted to eat them. "How far?" she asked. 3 weeks at full speed." "And the Accord?" "They are discussing the matter." Una felt something hot rise in her chest. She had seen this before. She had seen powerful people talk and debate while innocent lives were lost. She had promised herself long ago that she would never be one of those people. "Get me Admiral Bake," she said. Admiral Hyunwoo Bake was the highest-ranking officer in Earth's fleet. He was an old man with white hair and a face like carved stone. He had built the Defense Corps from nothing. He had united Earth's nations under one flag to face the stars together. "You have seen the transmission?" Una asked him. "I have. The Accord will not act in time. You know this." "I know." "Then let me go. Let me take the fleet." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Earth had treaties with the Accord. They were supposed to follow rules, to wait for permission. But Hyun Woo had not built his fleet to follow rules. He had built it to protect those who could not protect themselves. "Take what you need," he said finally. "I will handle the politicians. And if the Accord tries to stop us?" The old man smiled, and there was something dangerous in his eyes. "Let them try." Within hours, Earth's war machine began to move. Ships powered up their engines. Soldiers reported to their stations. Weapons were loaded and checked. The fleet had not seen real combat since the Unification Wars. Many had thought they never would. They were wrong. But humans did not go to war alone. They never had. In the cargo holds of every ship, special passengers were prepared. Wolves bred for generations to work alongside soldiers. Dogs trained to hunt and protect and fight. Hawks and eagles with eyes sharper than any camera. Even bears, massive and powerful, kept in reinforced chambers for the worst battles. On Earth, humans had evolved alongside these creatures. They had hunted together, fought together, survived together. When humanity reached the stars, they brought their oldest friends with them. Sergeant Minji Cho walked through the kennels of the flagship Pale Horse. She stopped at one cage where a large German shepherd waited for her. His name was Ghost, and he had been with her for 6 years. He had saved her life twice. She had saved his 3 times. "Hey boy," she said softly, opening the cage. Ghost pressed his nose against her hand. His tail wagged slowly. He could sense her tension. He knew something was coming. "We are going somewhere new," she told him. "There are people who need our help. Bad things are hurting them." Ghost looked at her with intelligent eyes. He did not understand her words. Not really. But he understood her meaning. He understood that his human needed him. Minji scratched behind his ears. "Ready to hunt?" Ghost's ears went forward. His body tensed. He was ready. Across the fleet, similar scenes played out. Handlers checked on their animals. Soldiers said goodbye to their families. Captains gave final orders. As the ships prepared to jump into fold space, Yuna stood on the bridge of the Pale Horse. She looked at the stars ahead of them. Somewhere out there, people were dying. People were screaming for help that would never come. But she was coming. Earth was coming. "All ships report ready." "Captain," her first officer said. Yuna nodded. She thought of the Villani children in the footage. She thought of every war she had ever fought. She thought of what it meant to be human. "Take us out," she said. "Maximum speed." The fleet jumped. The stars stretched and twisted, and the beasts of Earth went to war. The journey through fold space took 19 days. 19 days of preparation, 19 days of waiting, 19 days for the soldiers of Earth to think about what was coming. Commander Tae Kang stood in the main hangar of the Pale Horse, looking at the rows of drop pods that would carry his Marines to the surface. He was a big man with broad shoulders and a scar that ran down the left side of his face. He had gotten that scar in the food riots of 2089, back when Earth was still broken into warring nations. He had been 16 years old. Now he was 52, and he was about to lead the first human combat mission outside their own solar system. "Commander," said a voice behind him. He turned to see Lieutenant Sung-Ho Lee approaching. Sung-Ho was young, only 28. But he had sharp eyes and a quick mind. Tae had chosen him to lead the first wave. "How are the men?" Tae asked. "Nervous, excited, scared." Sung-Ho shrugged. "All the usual things. Good. A soldier who is not scared is a fool." "And the animals?" Tae looked toward the back of the hangar where the kennels were located. He could hear the wolves moving restlessly in their cages. They could feel the tension in the ship. They knew something was happening. "They are ready," Tae said. "They were born ready." The Galactic Accord had never understood humanity's relationship with animals. Most species in the galaxy kept pets. Yes, small creatures for comfort and company. But humans were different. Humans had formed partnerships with predators. 10,000 years ago, when humans were still living in caves and hunting with spears, they had made a deal with wolves. "We will feed you," the humans said. "We will give you warmth and shelter, and in return, you will help us hunt. You will guard our children. You will be our family." The wolves agreed. And over thousands of years, they changed together. Humans and dogs, humans and horses, humans and hawks, humans and 100 other species that chose to walk beside them. When the Accord studied Earth, they were confused by this. Why would a sentient species keep so many animals? Why would they spend resources on creatures that could not speak or think like they did? They did not understand. They could not understand. Because humans did not see animals as lesser beings. They saw them as partners, as friends, as brothers and sisters in the long war of survival. In the medical bay of the Pale Horse, Sergeant J10 sat with his dog, Razor. Razor was a Belgian Malinois, lean and fast and deadly. He had been trained since birth for combat. His teeth had been reinforced with metal. His muscles had been enhanced with genetic treatments. He was a weapon. Yes. But he was also J1's best friend. You know what is coming, do you not? J1 asked softly. Razor lifted his head and looked at his human. His eyes were intelligent, understanding. He pushed his nose against J1's hand. We are going to fight monsters. Real monsters. Not like the ones on Earth. These ones want to eat everything. Everyone. Razor growled softly. He did not like the sound of that. But we will stop them. You and me. Like always. The dog's tail wagged once. He trusted his human. He would follow him anywhere. 3 decks above, Captain Una Park received a transmission from Earth. It was from the Galactic Accord. She read it with cold eyes. Official warning. Earth vessels are in violation of Treaty 447, Section 12. You are entering a restricted zone without Accord authorization. Turn back immediately, or face sanctions. Una deleted the message. Captain, said her communications officer. The Accord is demanding a response. Then send them one. Tell them we received their warning. Tell them we do not care. The officer hesitated. That might cause political problems. There are people dying on Lyra, children being eaten by monsters. The Accord wants to talk about politics? Una shook her head. Send the message. Let them be angry. We have a job to do. As the fleet drew closer to Lyra, reports came in about the situation on the ground. It was bad. Very bad. The Drekar had taken most of the planet. Only one city still stood, protected by failing shields. The Volani were dying by the thousands every day. Commander Tay gathered his officers for a final briefing. The enemy is called the Drekar Swarm, he said, pointing to images on the screen. The creatures were horrible to look at. 6 legs, black shells, claws and teeth everywhere. They are a hive species. One queen controls millions of drones. Kill the drones, and more will come. Kill the queen, and the swarm falls apart. How tough are they? Asked one officer. Very. Their shells can stop small arms fire. They have acid blood that can burn through armor. They are fast, strong, and they feel no fear. Wonderful, someone muttered. But they have weaknesses. They depend on the queen for commands. Without her, they become confused, easy to kill. Their joints are vulnerable. Their eyes can be blinded, and most important, Tay smiled coldly. They have never fought humans before. They do not know what we are. They do not know what we can do. He looked around the room at his soldiers, men and women from every nation on Earth. Different faces, different histories, but all united under one flag. We are not going to Lyra to defend. We are going to hunt. We are going to find the queen and kill her. And we are going to bring every weapon we have, including our oldest ones. He pressed a button, and the screen showed images of wolves, dogs, hawks, and bears. The Drekar have conquered 100 worlds. They have destroyed species older than humanity, but they have never faced Earth. They have never faced us. Tay's voice grew hard. Today, they learn why the galaxy should fear the beast. On the lower decks, handlers prepared their animals for combat. Sergeant Minji Cho helped Ghost into his tactical vest. The vest was made of light armor, that would protect his chest and back. It had pouches for medical supplies and a camera so the commanders could see what he saw. "Good boy," she said, checking the straps. "You look very handsome." Ghost wagged his tail. He did not understand the word handsome, but he knew his human was happy with him. Nearby, other handlers worked with other animals. A woman named Hana Yoon prepared her hawk, a beautiful bird named Storm. Storm wore small cameras on his legs and had been trained to fly above battlefields, spotting enemies for the soldiers below. "Fly high, see far," Hana told the bird. "And come back to me." Storm clicked his beak. He would come back. He always did. In the deepest part of the ship, in reinforced chambers that could survive a nuclear blast, the bears waited. They were massive creatures, over 3 meters tall when standing. They had been bred for size and strength and rage. They were weapons of last resort, released only when nothing else would work. Their handlers did not enter the chambers. They only watched through thick glass as the bears paced back and forth. The animals knew something was coming. They were restless, hungry. "Sleep well, big ones," one handler whispered. "Soon you will have all the fighting you want." The fleet came out of fold space at the edge of the Lyra system. Through the viewports, the soldiers could see the planet below. It was burning. Smoke covered half the surface. Even from space, they could see the devastation. Captain Yuna looked at the world below and felt her heart harden. Somewhere down there, innocent people were fighting to survive. They had called for help, and only Earth had answered. "All ships, battle stations," she said. "Launch the drop pods." The hangar doors opened. Drop pods fell toward the burning world like metal rain. Inside each pod, soldiers held their weapons tight. Beside them, wolves and dogs waited with focused eyes. The hunt had begun. The drop pod hit the ground hard enough to shake Lieutenant Sung-Ho Lee's teeth. The doors blew open, and he was moving before the dust settled. Behind him, his squad poured out of the pod, rifles raised, eyes scanning for threats. The air smelled like smoke and death. The landscape around them had once been beautiful farmland. Now it was blackened earth and broken trees. In the distance, the last Villani city rose against the gray sky, its crystal towers cracked but still standing. Between the human landing zone and that city stood an army of monsters. "Contact!" someone shouted. The Drekar came out of the smoke like nightmares. They moved fast on their 6 legs, their black shells glistening with something wet. Their mouths opened wide, showing rows of teeth as long as knives. They screamed as they charged, a sound that made Sung-Ho's ears hurt. "Open fire!" he yelled. The humans shot back with everything they had. Rifles cracked. Grenades exploded. Drekar fell, but more kept coming. There were so many of them. Then the wolves were released. A pack of 12 wolves burst from the holding cages that had landed with the squad. They were not normal wolves. They were bigger, stronger, faster. They had been bred for this moment for generations. Their eyes burned with focus as they spread out across the battlefield. The Drekar had never seen anything like them. The aliens hesitated, confused by these new creatures that ran alongside the humans. That hesitation cost them. The wolves hit the enemy flanks like a wave. They did not attack head-on. They circled, bit, retreated, bit again. They targeted legs and joints, the weak points that Commander Tay had identified. A Drekar would turn to face one wolf, and another would attack from behind. Sung-Ho watched a wolf named Thunder take down a Drekar warrior twice his size. The wolf grabbed the alien's leg and pulled, throwing it off balance. Before the creature could recover, 2 soldiers put bullets through its head. "Push forward," Sung-Ho ordered. "Keep moving toward the city." The battle spread across the plains. More drop pods landed, bringing more soldiers and more animals. Dogs ran beside their handlers, barking and snarling. Hawks flew overhead, their cameras sending information back to the commanders in orbit. On the walls of the Villani city, the survivors watched in shock. Elder Vessa stood at the highest point, her crystalline eyes wide with disbelief. She had expected the Galactic Accord. She had expected diplomats, and peacekeepers, and gentle words. Instead, she saw monsters fighting monsters. She saw small creatures that walked on two legs, screaming and shooting fire from metal sticks. She saw four-legged beasts tearing at the Drekar with their teeth. She saw chaos and blood and death. "What are they?" whispered a young Vallani beside her. Vesa did not answer. She did not know. Below the walls, the fighting grew more intense. The Drekar were learning. They were adapting. They started targeting the animals, recognizing them as threats. Sergeant Minji Cho saw a Drekar warrior slice at Ghost with its claws. She screamed and shot the creature in the face, again and again until it fell. Ghost limped toward her, bleeding from a cut on his shoulder. "No, no, no," Minji said, dropping to her knees. She pulled out her medical kit and started treating the wound. Ghost whimpered but held still. He trusted her. "It is not deep," she said, mostly to herself. "You will be okay. You will be okay." Ghost licked her face. He was telling her not to worry. He was fine. He could keep fighting. Around them, the battle continued. Humans and animals fought side by side, covering each other, protecting each other. A soldier fell, and a dog stood over his body, snarling at any Drekar that came close until medics could arrive. A wolf pack brought down a massive Drekar commander, their teeth finding every weak spot in its armor. The aliens had never faced anything like this. They had conquered species that fought alone, that saw their animals as nothing more than food or tools. They did not understand creatures that fought together, that died for each other, that loved each other. By nightfall, the humans had established a perimeter around the city. The Drekar had retreated, regrouping for another attack. Both sides had taken heavy losses. Commander Tay walked through the makeshift camp, checking on his soldiers. Many were wounded. Some were dead, but they had held the line. They had reached the city. He stopped at the city gates, where a group of Vallani had gathered. They were tall, thin beings with skin that shimmered like pearl. Their eyes were large and dark, and they looked at the humans with a mix of fear and wonder. "You came," one of them said. Her voice was soft, musical. "We did not think anyone would come. We heard your call," Tay said simply. "The Accord said they would send help. They said to wait. The Accord sends words. We send warriors." The Vallani looked past him at the battlefield, at the bodies of Drekar and humans and animals lying together in the mud. "Your creatures," she said. "They fight with you. Why?" Tay turned to look at the camp. He saw Minji holding Ghost close. He saw handlers treating wounded dogs. He saw a soldier crying over a wolf that had died protecting him. "Because they are family," he said. The Vallani did not understand. Her species had evolved without predators, without the need to form bonds with other creatures. The concept of interspecies family was strange to her, but she could see the results. She could see what these humans and their animals had done in just one day. "Thank you," she said finally. "Whatever you are, thank you," Tay nodded. "The fight is not over. The Queen still lives. Until she dies, the swarm will keep coming. Then what will you do?" "What we always do." Tay's eyes were hard, determined. "We hunt." That night, Captain Yuna came down from orbit to meet with the Vallani leaders. She walked through the city, past buildings of crystal and light, past aliens who stared at her like she was something from a nightmare. Elder Vesa met her in the Great Hall, a dome of singing crystal that had somehow survived the attacks. "Captain Park," Vesa said, "I am told you are the leader of this fleet." "I am. The Galactic Accord has sent us messages. They are concerned about your presence here. They say you are dangerous, that you should not be trusted." Yuna smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "The Accord talked while your people died. We came. Which of us should you trust?" Vesa was silent for a moment. Then she did something that surprised Yuna. She bowed, low and deep. "You are right. You came when no one else would. Whatever you are our saviors." "Not yet," Yuna said. "We have won one battle. The war is just beginning. Can you win it?" Yuna thought about her soldiers, tired and bloody but still fighting. She thought about the animals, wounded but still loyal. She thought about all the wars humanity had fought, all the enemies they had faced and beaten. "We can," she said. "But it will cost us. Many of us will die before this is over." "Why do you do it?" Vesa asked. "Why come so far? Risk so much? For a species you have never met?" Yuna looked at the old Villani with something like sadness in her eyes. "Because you called for help. And on Earth, we answer that call. We always have." She turned and walked back toward the camp, leaving Vesa alone in the great hall. The elder stood there for a long time, thinking about what she had seen. These humans were not what the Accord had described. They were not primitive. They were not beasts, or perhaps they were beasts, but they were beasts who had come to save her people. And right now, that was all that mattered. The Galactic Accord watched from the safety of their great hall, millions of light years away from the blood and fire of Lyra. Ambassador Vex, a being of silver skin and cold eyes, stood before the council with a report in his hands. "The humans have engaged the Drekar swarm," he said. "They did not wait for our permission. They did not follow protocol. They simply attacked. This is unacceptable," said a council member from the Rashani delegation. "Earth is a pre-ascendant world. They have no right to intervene in galactic affairs." "Perhaps not," said another member, "but they are winning." The room went quiet. Vex pulled up images on the main screen. They showed human soldiers fighting alongside their animals. They showed wolves tearing at Drekar flesh. They showed dogs pulling wounded soldiers to safety. They showed the bodies of both humans and creatures lying together on the battlefield. "What are those things?" asked a young delegate who had never studied Earth. "They are called animals," Vex explained. "Earth is home to millions of different species. The humans have partnerships with many of them." "Partnerships? With non-sentient beings?" "The humans do not see them as non-sentient. They see them as family." The council members exchanged confused looks. Most species in the galaxy had long ago separated themselves from the lesser creatures on their worlds. They had built cities and technologies and left the beasts behind. The idea of bringing animals to war was strange, disturbing. "They are primitives," said the Rashani delegate. "This proves it. Only a primitive species would fight alongside beasts, but others were not so sure." They watched the footage of humans and animals working together with perfect coordination. They saw the bond between handler and creature. They saw something that their own species had lost long ago. They saw loyalty. They saw love. They saw the power of creatures who would die for each other. On Lyra, the battle continued. Corporal Nari Kim crouched in the ruins of a Villani temple, her rifle ready. Beside her was a Villani healer named Essa. They had met 3 days ago, when Nari's squad had rescued a group of civilians from a Drekar hunting party. Essa had been among them. Now the healer followed Nari everywhere, fascinated by the human soldier and her strange companions. "Your wolf," Essa said, watching as Shadow, a gray female, patrolled the area around them. "She protects you. She protects everyone," Nari said. "That is what wolves do. They protect the pack. And you are her pack?" "Yes, all of us are. The whole squad." Essa tilted her head, trying to understand. "On my world, we have no such creatures. We evolved alone. We had no predators, no prey. Everything was peaceful." Nari smiled sadly. "On Earth, nothing was peaceful. Everything was trying to kill everything else. We had to fight for every day of survival. But we did not fight alone. We found allies, friends, family, the animals. Yes, wolves helped us hunt, dogs guarded our homes, horses carried us across the land, hawks helped us see our enemies. We grew together, changed together. They are part of who we are." A sound came from the north. Shadow's ears went up, and she growled softly. Nari raised her hand, signaling for silence. "Drekar?" Essa whispered. "Maybe. Shadow will tell us." The wolf sniffed the air, then relaxed. Her tail wagged once. A moment later, 3 human soldiers appeared from the smoke, followed by 2 more wolves. "Friendlies," Nari said, lowering her rifle. Essa watched in wonder. The wolf had known who was coming, before anyone could see them. She had communicated this to her human, with just a change in her posture. It was like they shared a mind. "The Accord calls you beasts," Essa said quietly. "They say you are uncivilized. Dangerous." Nari laughed, a short, bitter sound. "We are dangerous. We are beasts. That is the point. I do not understand." Nari turned to look at the healer with tired eyes. "Your people are gentle, kind. You built beautiful cities and lived in peace. That is wonderful. But when the monsters came, you could not fight. You could not survive." She gestured at herself, at Shadow, at the soldiers around her. "We are not gentle. We are not kind. Evolution made us into killers. Every generation. We fought to survive. The weak died, and the strong lived. We became predators." That sounds terrible. It was. But it also made us strong. It taught us to fight, to never give up, to protect what we love. Nari's voice softened. "The Accord sits in their safe halls and calls us primitive. But when your people screamed for help, who came? Not the civilized species. Not the peaceful ones. The beasts came, because only beasts can fight monsters." Essa was quiet for a long moment. She thought about her people, about the centuries of peace they had enjoyed. She thought about how quickly that peace had turned to death when the Drekar arrived. "Perhaps," she said finally, "civilization is not always a blessing." "No," Nari agreed. "Sometimes it makes you forget how to survive." Miles away, Fleet Admiral Hyun Woo Baek studied the battle reports from his command ship in orbit. The humans had established a strong position around the Villani city. But they were not winning. Not really. The Drekar kept coming, wave after wave, too many to count. "We need to find the Queen," he said to his officers. "Nothing else matters. Our scouts have identified several possible hive locations," said Major Daejung Shin, pointing at a map. "The largest is here, in the northern mountains. We believe the Queen is there. Then that is where we go." "Sir, the terrain is difficult. We will lose many soldiers getting there." Hyun-woo nodded slowly. He had known this from the beginning. He had known that many of his people would die on this world. He had made peace with that fact before they ever left Earth. "Send the hawks first," he ordered. "I want eyes on that hive before we move, and prepare the bears." The officers exchanged looks. The bears were the last resort. They were weapons of pure destruction, released only when all other options had failed. Using them meant accepting massive casualties on both sides. "Sir, are you sure? The Drekar Queen has destroyed 100 worlds. She has killed billions. She will not stop until everything is dead." Hyun-woo's voice was hard as iron. "We did not come here to hold a line. We came here to end this, whatever it takes." He looked out the viewport at the burning world below. Somewhere down there, his soldiers were fighting and dying. His animals were bleeding beside them. And the enemy kept coming. "Whatever it takes," he repeated. That night, Lieutenant Hana Yoon released Storm into the sky. The hawk flew high, circling above the battlefield, his cameras capturing everything below. He saw the human camp, small and bright against the darkness. He saw the Drekar masses, spreading like a disease across the land, and in the distance, he saw the mountains where the hive waited. Hana watched through her monitor as Storm flew north. The bird was brave and strong, but he was flying into danger. She wanted to call him back, to keep him safe, but she did not. Storm had a job to do. "Fly high, see far," she whispered. "Come back to me. Come back to me." The hawk flew on, disappearing into the night sky, and far below, in the ruins and the blood, humans and animals settled in for another night of war. They had come to save the Villani. They had come to fight the monsters. But they had also come to prove something to the galaxy, that the beasts of Earth were not primitive, they were not uncivilized, they were simply different. They were the children of a world that had never been kind. A world where you either fought or died. A world where survival meant finding allies, making friends, building families that crossed the boundaries of species. The Accord called them beasts. They accepted the name with pride. The Drekar Queen was ancient. She had lived for thousands of years, spreading her swarm across the stars, consuming world after world. She had faced many enemies in that time. All of them had fallen. All of them had been devoured. But these new creatures were different. She sat in her chamber deep within the mountain, surrounded by her personal guards. Her body was massive, bloated with eggs that would become new warriors. Her mind reached out across the hive, touching millions of her children, feeling their hunger and their pain. Something was wrong. Her swarm was dying faster than it should. These small, soft creatures from the unknown world were killing her children by the thousands. And worse, they were not alone. They had brought other creatures with them, animals that fought with the same fury as the sentient beings. The queen did not understand this. In all her years, she had never seen such a thing. Species kept animals for food, for labor, for company. They did not bring them to war, but understanding was not necessary. Only victory mattered. She reached out with her mind and sent a command to her children. Attack. Attack with everything. Overwhelm them. Destroy them. The swarm obeyed. Sergeant J10 was sleeping when the alarm started. He was on his feet in seconds, grabbing his rifle, running toward the perimeter. Beside him, Razor matched his pace, the dog's eyes glowing in the darkness. The night sky was filled with Drekar. They poured down from the mountains like a black river. Millions of them. More than J1 had ever seen. The ground shook with their footsteps. All units, defensive positions. Commander Tay's voice crackled through the radio. This is the big one. Hold the line. The humans opened fire. Tracers lit up the night like angry fireflies. Explosions bloomed among the Drekar masses. But for every alien that fell, 10 more took its place. There are too many, someone shouted. Keep fighting, J1 yelled back. We hold here, or everyone dies. Razor barked and lunged forward, grabbing a Drekar that had gotten too close. The dog's metal-reinforced teeth tore through the alien's leg. Bringing it down, J1 shot it in the head, then turned to face the next one. The battle was chaos. Humans and animals fought side by side, desperately trying to hold back the tide. Wolves formed hunting packs, targeting the largest Drekar. Dogs pulled wounded soldiers to safety. Hawks dove from above, their cameras guiding artillery strikes. But the swarm was endless. J1 saw soldiers fall, their bodies torn apart by Drekar claws. He saw dogs die protecting their handlers. He saw wolves pulled down by dozens of aliens at once. The ground was slick with blood, human and animal and alien all mixed together. Then Razor went down. A Drekar warrior, bigger than the others, caught the dog with a sweep of its claw. Razor yelped in pain as a spine punched through his chest. He fell, his legs kicking weakly. No! J1 screamed. He shot the Drekar, emptying his entire magazine into its body. The creature fell, but J1 did not care. He dropped to his knees beside Razor, his hands shaking. The dog's eyes were still open. He looked at J1 with an expression that the soldier had seen many times. Trust. Love. He was trying to wag his tail, but his body was not working anymore. No. Stay with me, J1 begged. Please, Razor. Stay with me. Razor licked his hand once. A final goodbye. Then his eyes closed, and he was gone. Something broke inside J1. He had fought in many battles. He had lost friends, brothers, people he loved. But losing Razor was different. The dog had been with him for 8 years. They had trained together, fought together, lived together. Razor was not just a partner. He was family. J1 stood up slowly. He looked at the Drekar masses still coming toward them. He felt something cold settle in his chest, replacing the warmth that had died with Razor. Come on then, he whispered. Come on. He picked up his rifle and walked forward, toward the enemy. Other soldiers called out to him, telling him to come back. But he did not listen. He just kept walking, kept shooting, kept killing. A Drekar reached for him. He shot it. Another came, and another. He shot them all. When his rifle was empty, he used his knife. When his knife broke, he used his hands. He was not fighting to win anymore. He was fighting to kill. He was fighting because that was all he had left. On the walls of the Villani city, the civilians watched the battle in horror. They had never seen such violence. They had never imagined that beings could fight with such fury, such desperation. Elder Vesa stood among them, tears running down her crystalline face. These humans were dying for her people. These animals were bleeding beside them. And there was nothing she could do to help. "They will fall," said a young Villani beside her. "There are too many enemies. They will all die." "Perhaps," Vesa said quietly. "But they will not run. They will not surrender. They will fight until the end." "Why? Why do they do this?" Vesa thought about the conversations she had had with Captain Park. She thought about what the human had told her about Earth, about survival, about family. "Because that is who they are," she said. "They are the children of a hard world. They do not know how to give up." Riding with hard world, in orbit, Captain Yuna received the casualty reports. The numbers were devastating. They had lost almost a third of their ground forces in one night. Many of their animals were dead or wounded. The perimeter was barely holding. Her officers looked at her with exhausted eyes, waiting for orders. Some of them thought she would call for a retreat. It would be the smart thing to do. Pull back, regroup, wait for reinforcements. But reinforcements were not coming. Earth had sent everything it had. This was all they had. "Captain," said her first officer, "we cannot sustain these losses. We should consider—" "No," Yuna said. Her voice was calm, but there was iron beneath it. "We do not retreat. We do not surrender. But the men know why we are here. They know what we are fighting for." Yuna looked at the tactical display, at the red dots that represented her dying soldiers. "Send everything we have left, every reserve, every weapon, and release the bears." The officers went silent. The bears were the last option. Once they were released, there was no going back. "Captain, are you certain?" Yuna thought about the Villani children she had seen, huddled in the ruins of their city. She thought about the screams in that first transmission, the screams that had made her decide to come here. She thought about what it meant to be human. "The Drekar want to break us," she said. "They want us to run, to give up, to be like every other species they have conquered. We come from a world where everything was trying to kill us. We survived because we refused to stop fighting." She turned to face her officers. Her eyes were hard, determined. "Send the bears. Let them see what the beasts of Earth can really do." Deep in the cargo holds, the handlers received the order. They looked at each other with grim faces, then began the release sequence. The reinforced chambers opened. The bears stirred, rising to their full height. They were monsters, in their own way. Massive creatures of muscle and rage, bred for war. The handlers stepped back as the bears moved toward the transport pods. There was no controlling them once they were released. There was only pointing them at the enemy and hoping they killed more of them than anything else. "Good luck," one handler whispered. The bears roared, a sound that echoed through the entire ship. Then, they were loaded into the pods and launched toward the planet below. The night was about to get much worse for the Drekar, and somewhere on the battlefield, Sergeant J10 kept fighting, surrounded by the bodies of his enemies, covered in their blood. He had nothing left to lose. He had nothing left to fear. He was a beast of Earth, and he would fight until his heart stopped beating. The drop pods hit the ground at the center of the battlefield, their impact shaking the Earth for miles around. The doors blew open, and the bears came out. There were 20 of them. Each one stood over 3 meters tall, with muscles that could bend steel and claws that could tear through armor. They had been bred for generations, enhanced with genetic treatments, trained to fight and kill. They were not animals anymore. They were weapons of war. And they were angry. The first bear charged into the Drekar lines like a living tank. It grabbed an alien warrior in each hand and crushed them together. It swung its massive arms, sending bodies flying through the air. It roared with a sound that made the earth shake. The Drekar, for the first time in the battle, felt fear. They tried to swarm the bears, to bring them down with numbers. But the creatures were too strong, too fast, too furious. A bear could take a dozen wounds and keep fighting. A bear could kill 100 Drekar before it finally fell. The human soldiers watched in shock as the massive creatures tore through the enemy. Even they had never seen the bears in full combat before. It was terrifying and beautiful and horrible all at once. "Push forward," Commander Tay shouted. "Follow the bears. This is our chance." The humans advanced behind the wall of destruction the bears created. Wolves ran alongside them, finishing off wounded Drekar. Dogs barked and snapped at anything that came too close. The tide of battle was turning. Major Daejung Shin led the armored battalion through the gap the bears had created. His tanks crushed Drekar nests under their treads. His artillery turned the landscape into fire and ash. He had one objective: reach the mountains, find the Queen, end this war. "All units, we are going north," he announced through his radio. "Nothing stops us. Nothing." The push began. It was not a battle. It was a slaughter. The humans advanced with everything they had, leaving nothing but death behind them. Bears led the charge, absorbing damage that would have killed 100 soldiers. Wolves hunted down fleeing Drekar, making sure none escaped. Hawks flew above, directing strikes with perfect accuracy. The Drekar queen felt her children dying by the thousands. She felt fear, something she had not experienced in centuries. These creatures, these beasts from the unknown world, were coming for her. She sent more warriors. They died. She sent her elite guards, the largest and strongest of her children. The bears killed them. She sent everything she had, every last warrior in the hive. It was not enough. Lieutenant Hana Yoon reached the Queen's Mountain as the sun was rising. She had led a small team of scouts ahead of the main force, following the information Storm had gathered before the night attack. Her hawk circled above her now, his sharp eyes watching for danger. "The entrance is there," she said, pointing to a dark opening in the mountainside. "The Queen is inside." Her team was small. 5 soldiers and 2 wolves. They were tired, wounded, barely standing. But they had come too far to stop now. "We go in," Hana said. "We find the Queen. We end this." They entered the hive. Inside, the tunnels were dark and wet, covered with organic material that pulsed with strange light. The smell was terrible, a mix of death and something alien. The wolves whined softly, their fur standing up along their spines. "Easy," Hana whispered. "Stay close." They moved deeper into the hive, past empty chambers and abandoned nests. Most of the warriors had gone to fight the human advance. The Queen was almost undefended. Almost. They turned a corner and found themselves facing a wall of Drekar guards. These were different from the warriors outside. They were bigger, more armored, their claws longer and sharper. "The Queen's personal protectors." "Oh no," one of the soldiers whispered. The guards attacked. The fight was brutal and fast. 2 soldiers fell in the first seconds. The wolves fought with desperate fury, but they were outnumbered. Hana shot and stabbed and kicked, but the guards kept coming. One by one, her team went down. The wolves fell, the soldiers fell, until only Hana remained, standing alone in the tunnel, with an empty rifle and a broken knife. She looked at the guards, still blocking her path. There were 6 of them left. Too many. Storm screamed overhead, diving toward the guards. The hawk struck one in the eyes, blinding it. Hana used the distraction to grab a dead soldier's weapon and fire. Another guard fell. Then another, but there were still more, and Hana was out of ammunition. She dropped the rifle and pulled out her pistol. 3 shots. 3 guards left. She fired once. A guard fell. She fired again. Another fell. She aimed at the last guard, pulled the trigger. Click. Empty. The guard charged. Hana closed her eyes, waiting for the end. It never came. A massive shape burst through the tunnel wall, showering rock and debris everywhere. It was a bear, one of the 20 that had been released. It had followed the scent of blood through the mountain, looking for more enemies to kill. The bear grabbed the last guard and tore it apart with its bare hands. Hana stared at the creature in shock. The bear looked at her with small, dark eyes. For a moment, she thought it would attack her too. But it did not. It simply turned and walked away, looking for more things to kill. She was alone. Ahead, the tunnel opened into a massive chamber. And there, in the center, surrounded by eggs and organic machinery, sat the Drekar queen. The queen was enormous, bigger than anything Hana had ever seen. Her body was bloated with the eggs of 1,000,000 warriors. Her eyes, dozens of them, all focused on the small human standing at the entrance to her chamber. "You," the queen said. Her voice was like grinding rocks, painful to hear. "You are the one who leads this pack of beasts?" "No," Hana said. "I am just a soldier who has killed my children, a soldier who has come to kill me." "Yes," the queen laughed, a horrible sound that echoed through the chamber. "You are alone. Your weapons are empty. Your pack is dead. And you think you can kill me?" Hana looked at the queen. She thought about everyone who had died to get her here. The soldiers, the wolves, her team. She thought about all the Villani who had been killed by this monster's children. She thought about Earth. "I do not have to kill you," she said quietly. "Then why are you here?" Hana smiled. Above her, Storm circled, his cameras broadcasting everything back to the fleet in orbit. "I am here to tell you something. We found you. We know where you are." The queen's eyes narrowed. "That means nothing. My guards will. Your guards are dead. Your warriors are dying. And right now, every weapon my people have is aimed at this mountain." As if to prove her point, the ground shook. In the distance, the sound of explosions grew closer. "You cannot escape," Hana continued. "You cannot hide. You thought you were the hunter. But you were wrong. You were always the prey." The queen screamed in rage and charged toward Hana, but before she could reach the human, the ceiling exploded. Major Shin's forces had arrived. Tanks smashed through the tunnel walls. Soldiers poured into the chamber, firing at the queen. Bears crashed through from multiple directions, their roars shaking the stone. Hana was thrown to the ground by the explosion. When she looked up, she saw the queen surrounded by enemies. The massive creature fought back, killing soldiers and animals with every sweep of her claws, but there were too many. A bear grabbed one of the queen's legs and pulled. Another grabbed her arm. Soldiers fired into her body from every direction. Wolves tore at her flesh, finding the gaps in her armor. The queen of the Drekar swarm, conqueror of 100 worlds, destroyer of billions, fell. Her dying scream echoed across the planet, reaching every one of her children through the hive mind. Across Lyra, Drekar warriors stopped fighting. They stood frozen, their connection to the queen severed, their purpose gone. Then, one by one, they fell. The swarm was dead. The war was over. Hana lay on the ground, covered in dust and blood, looking up at the hole in the ceiling. Through it, she could see the sky. She could see storms circling above. "We did it," she whispered. "We really did it." She closed her eyes and let the darkness take her. The sun rose over Lyra, golden light spreading across a world that was finally at peace. The Drekar were gone. Without the queen, the swarm had collapsed. Millions of warriors had simply stopped moving, their bodies shutting down as the hive mind went silent. The humans had spent 3 days clearing the remains, burning the hive clusters, making sure nothing survived. Now, on the 4th day after the queen's death, the survivors gathered to count what had been lost. Captain Yuna Park walked through the makeshift cemetery that had been built outside the Villani city. Rows of graves stretched across the field, each marked with a simple metal cross. Beside many of the human graves were smaller markers, places where dogs and wolves had been buried next to their handlers. They had lost almost half their forces, 2,000 soldiers, 300 animals. The price of victory. Yuna stopped at one grave near the center of the field. The marker read, "Razor, loyal friend, brave warrior, rest well." Sergeant J-1O stood beside the grave, his head bowed. He had survived the battle, though no one was quite sure how. The medics said he should have died a dozen times. But he had kept fighting, kept killing, until there was nothing left to kill. "He was a good dog," Yuna said quietly. J1 nodded. He did not speak. He had not spoken much since the battle ended. "He saved many lives that night. You both did." "It was not enough," J1 whispered. "I could not save him." Yuna put a hand on his shoulder. "He died, doing what he was born to do. Protecting his pack. There is no greater honor for a creature of Earth." J1 was silent for a moment. Then he looked at Yuna with tired eyes. "When I joined the Corps, they told me that dogs were tools, weapons. I should not get attached. And they were wrong. Razor was never a tool. He was my brother. He was the best part of me." Tears ran down the soldier's face. "I miss him, Captain. I miss him so much." Yuna did not have words for that kind of pain. She just stood beside him, letting him grieve. 3 cycles later, the Galactic Accord arrived. Their ships descended on Lyra in perfect formation, white and elegant and clean. They had come to observe, to document, to judge. Ambassador Vex led the delegation, his silver face as cold as ever. He found Captain Yuna in the command tent, reviewing reports with her officers. She did not stand when he entered. "Ambassador," she said without looking up, "you are late." "I am here on behalf of the Galactic Accord," Vex said stiffly, "to discuss your actions." "Discuss away. You violated 17 treaties. You entered a restricted zone without authorization. You brought weapons of war to a diplomatic situation." We saved these people," Yuna interrupted. "While you discussed and debated and worried about protocols, we came here and we fought. We bled. We died. And now the Drekar are gone. That does not excuse." Yuna finally looked up. Her eyes were cold and hard. "The Villani called for help. You sent observers. We sent warriors. Tell me, Ambassador, which of us did the right thing?" Vex had no answer for that. Elder Vessa approached the tent, having heard the raised voices. She looked at the ambassador with something like disappointment. "We sent our message to everyone," she said. "We begged for help. Your people talked about it. The humans came." "The humans are dangerous," Vex said. "They are unpredictable. They do not follow the rules of civilized species. Perhaps your rules are wrong." The ambassador stared at her. "What do you mean?" Vessa gestured at the world around them. At the rebuilding city. At the human soldiers helping Villani civilians clear rubble. At the dogs playing with Villani children who had never seen animals before. "Look at them," she said. "Look at what they have done. They did not come for territory. They did not come for resources. They came because we were suffering, and they could not bear to let us suffer alone. They are still dangerous. Yes, they are dangerous. They are beasts." Vessa smiled softly. "But they are beasts who protect the weak. Beasts who fight for strangers. Beasts who die for people they have never met." She looked at Vex with ancient, wise eyes. "Your accord has existed for thousands of years. How many species have you saved?" The ambassador was silent. "These beasts saved us in days. Perhaps, Ambassador, we need more beasts and fewer civilized species." Vex left without another word. His ships departed that evening, returning to the safety of the Accord's territory. The humans stayed to help rebuild. Corporal Nari Kim sat on a hill outside the city, watching the sunset. Beside her was Essa, the Villani healer who had become her friend, and at her feet lay Shadow, the wolf who had survived the battle with only a few new scars. "What happens now?" Essa asked. "We go home eventually," Nari said. "Back to Earth. Back to our families. Will you come back?" Nari smiled. "Maybe. The galaxy is big. There are probably other people who need help. The Accord will not like that. The Accord does not like anything we do." Nari scratched Shadow behind the ears. "But that is not going to stop us. It never has." Essa was quiet for a moment, thinking about everything she had learned in the past weeks. About humans. About animals. About the strange, beautiful bond between creatures who had evolved together on a harsh world. "Your people," she said finally. "They are not what anyone expected. We never are. The Accord says you are dangerous. They fear what you might become." Nari looked at her wolf, at the scars on her fur, at the intelligence in her eyes. She thought about Razor and Ghost and Storm and all the other animals who had fought and died alongside humans. She thought about what made Earth special. "Good," she said. "Let them fear. Because when someone cries for help, the civilized species send observers." She smiled, and there was something ancient in her eyes, something fierce. "We send the pack." On the other side of the galaxy, the stories spread. Species that had never heard of Earth suddenly knew its name. They heard about the world where evolution had forged killers. They heard about creatures that fought alongside animals. They heard about beasts who answered calls that no one else would. Some were afraid. They looked at humanity and saw danger, but others were hopeful. They looked at humanity and saw something new, something different, something that might change the galaxy. The Villani joined Earth's growing coalition, the first of many species that would choose to stand with humanity rather than the Accord. Other worlds followed, attracted by the simple promise that Earth offered. "We will fight for you. We will protect you. We will never abandon you." The Accord watched nervously from their comfortable halls. They had ruled the galaxy for millennia, keeping peace through rules and diplomacy. But now, there was a new power rising, a power that did not follow rules, a power that fought like beasts, and deep in the darkness between stars, other species heard the stories. Species that were suffering, species that were dying, species that had called for help and received nothing but silence. They sent their messages out into the void, hoping someone would hear. And somewhere, on a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy, the beasts of Earth were listening. They had answered one call. They would answer more, because that was who they were. That was what they did. They were the children of a hard world, forged by blood and struggle and countless generations of survival. They were soldiers and hunters and predators. They were humans and wolves and dogs and hawks and bears. They were family. They cried out for help, but only the beasts of Earth came, and the beasts always came. The end.